Assalamualaikum. In this video we will understand about the top two drug which that is important and mimic the fasting. So whenever you will eat, so your body feel the fasting. So what is the benefit of the fasting and what is the side effect of the fat state chronically, and that we will understand in this video. So basically, and we will understand about what is the drug which that mimicry the fasting even you are going to the eating time. So that is an important thing you should need to understand. So the number one thing is whenever you will fasting, so the mTOR, the mammalian target of rapamycin complex 1 and 2 basically will inhibit, and in this way during the fasting that mTOR will inhibit. In this way the damaged cell proliferation will inhibit, because the mTOR pathway is the protein which that will lead to cascade of phosphorylation, and in this way will lead to activate the certain gene for the surviving of the cell even the damage. And also the mTOR pathway also ability to divide the damaged cell and not repair, and in this way basically it is basically anabolic path. So remember, this anabolism will lead to biogenesis of the certain proteins, that certain things in the cell, even the cell will damage. So these things will not occur in the fasting state. So basically mTOR will trigger due to the fat state, while the fasting state will inhibit the mTOR. Anyhow, during the fasting, so the damaged cell will be clear. How it is possible? So in this way the mTOR will inhibit, but it is also the anabolic protein will trigger. Whenever you will go into the fasting, so the AMPK pathway will activate. This AMPK pathway will lead to trigger the biogenesis of mitochondria and the survival of the healthy cell. While AMPK pathway will inhibit the mTOR pathway, because the mTOR pathway will trigger due to the nutrient rich condition. In this way, the AMPK will trigger the certain gene activation for the basically survival of the cell. Even longevity will increase of the cell. The cell will remain healthy if AMPK is the sensitivity for the cell for checking, like when drop the ATP due to the energy deficiency. So the starvation mode of the cell will trigger the ADP, but ATP will decrease, will lead to trigger the AMPK pathway. That phosphorylation of the AMPK pathway will lead to trigger the certain gene for the biogenesis of mitochondria, for more production of ATP, as well as the cell survival if the cell will healthy. If the cell will not healthy, so it will remove the recycle. In this way the recycle, which that is basically important, so you should need to understand. So if the cell will damage, even the AMPK pathway will also prepare the cell DNA damage repair and the oxidative stress repair. On the other hand, the reactive oxygen species decline by the different mechanism. We are not understanding, but we are understanding the drug which that will lead to mimicry of the fasting. So basically the mimicry of the fasting means the AMPK will trigger while the mTOR will decrease. So the mTOR is basically lead to cause cancer even due to the unrepaired DNA containing cell will proliferate and divide due to the mTOR, while the AMPK also function differently, like basically survival of the cell, proliferation also, but the healthy cell will work while the unhealthy cell will be recycled due to the apoptosis is known as the autophagy. That autophagy will not occur in the mTOR, but the AMPK will trigger. Anyhow, this is the major reason. So in this way the cancer progression will inhibit due to the fasting, while the mTOR will trigger the cancer. On the other hand, remember that things are basically autophagy and the activation of immune cell, which that will lead to autophagolysosome formation, will lead to clear that all debris. Anyhow, let's understand about the drug which that will mimicry and what is the benefit, what is the side effect. Let's understand about that. So whenever the number one thing is that when you will consume the metformin. So what is the metformin? The metformin is the metformin is the drug which that trigger the AMPK pathway, and same mechanism will survive the cell. Even the metformin is not only that, but metformin also inhibits the glucose absorption into your blood from the digestive system. It means the slow absorption of the glucose will lead to inhibit the spike of the insulin. So the insulin is the anabolic, but it is not like a growth hormone. So in this way, the insulin when drop, the growth hormone will trigger. Anyhow, the growth hormone trigger will lead to increase the insulin like growth factor 1. But important thing is you should need to understand the insulin like growth factor 1 during the fasting time will inhibit. But sometimes the insulin like growth factor 1 will trigger but the little amount. Anyhow, the growth hormone is also trigger the IGF-1. But remember that when you will use the metformin, the absorption of the glucose will stop from your stomach, from your digestive system. In this way, for example, the metformin also enhance the insulin like growth factor 1. The insulin like growth factor 1 is the anabolic, will lead to glycogenesis in the muscle and liver. It can work autocrinally and paracrinally, even it also work endocrinally. Will target release from the liver, and that metformin trigger it and will lead to target also to the muscle and bones. Anyhow, this is the major mechanism. The insulin will drop due to the metformin, but also the metformin will increase the insulin like growth factor 1. The insulin like growth factor 1 will trigger, while on the other hand, the less absorption of the glucose, we will feel the fasting. That is the mimicry of fasting. But also the IGF-1 also release and spike during the fasting. So remember, that is why the IGF-1 will increase. The glucophage like metformin will target to the liver to increase the insulin like growth factor 1. When insulin like growth factor 1 will bind with the liver, will lead to influx of the glucose, and that glucose will convert into the glycogen, is known as glycogenesis. And this is the anabolic, and in this way AMPK pathway also trigger. So metformin also target to the electron transport chain to inhibit the oxidative phosphorylation. When oxidative phosphorylation will inhibit, in this way the ATP will not produce more from the mitochondria during the electron transport chain. In this way, the deficiency of ATP will lead to increase the cyclic AMP, and the fasting which that basically decrease the deficiency of ATP will inhibit the ATP production more, and same mechanism the ATP will decrease will lead to increase the AMPK pathway. That AMPK pathway will work same for the survival of the cell and the inhibition of the survival of that cell which that is totally damaged and unable to repair, but those cells which that is able to repair and easy, so it can be repaired. In this way the cancer progression will inhibit, in this way the longevity will trigger. On the other hand, the metformin is too much important, which that basically lead to anti-cancer. So you know about that, inhibit the mTOR pathway due to the AMPK pathway increase. So anyhow, and in this way the mitochondria biogenesis will increase because the mitochondria will under the rest state due to the metformin. Anyhow, the metformin target is a lot, but in this video we have discussed about a little bit. Anyhow, in next video we will understand the further. So let's understand about the basically the rapamycin. So the rapamycin is the second most important drug, which that also the mimicry of fasting and anti-aging. What is the rapamycin? The rapamycin will inhibit the mammalian target of rapamycin. That is the protein which that we have given the name, basically the human. So the scientist given that name, the rapamycin, mammalian target of rapamycin is known as the mTOR. So the mTOR is responsible for the progression of the cancer cell. If the cell will damage, it will progress, proliferate, but not autophagy will occur. Cell will not recycle. In this way, that cell will progress due to the mTOR pathway. The mTOR pathway will inhibit due to the rapamycin. The rapamycin is the drug which that inhibit in this way. The rapamycin inhibit the mTOR pathway, while the rapamycin basically when inhibit the mTOR in this way the biogenesis of mitochondria, and on the other hand the proliferation of the cell growth will stop, but in the same time when inhibit the mTOR, the AMPK will trigger. This AMPK will lead to basically activate this certain gene for the survival of the cell and repairing of the DNA, repairing of the Golgi bodies and mitochondria and all things, basically that is important. So this two drug is more popular, and that is why these two drugs is the anti-aging and it is mimic the fasting. And in this way it is basically the same like a fasting, because the fasting is also increase the AMPK pathway. So this is a simple story for understanding. I hope you make sense about that. If you like my video, please make sure to subscribe, like and share. I am also making a handwritten tutorial about the biomedical science, so you can learn a lot of knowledge. So in the next video, we will understand about the another anti-aging complexes and drugs like you can resveratrol and the sulforaphane and other type of the fulvic acid and a lot more, basically silimarin. So a lot more compounds, but we will understand them one by one, because a lot of knowledge which that is unable to cover in the single video. So I hope you make sense about that. If you like my video, please make sure to subscribe, like and share. See you in the next video for this time. Bye. Allah Hafiz.